What is up, everybody, and welcome to episode 89 of the Trainer Scoop podcast. Have a very special one in order for y'all today. Returning guest, they got great feedback and great welcome to the podcast the first time around. So I'm going to be welcoming back for the second time my across the pond guest, Daniel. How's it going, man? How you doing?
I'm doing great. I'm your Irish friend, your leprechaun.
Yes, sir.
Let's get it out of the way.
Oh, there we go. There we go. I love it. I love it. Joined by the Irish. That's going to be the episode 89 title.
Absolutely. We should have recorded on Paddy's Day 2 weeks ago, man, but we'll do it next year.
Shit.
We'll do it next year.
Okay, wait. Is that a thing in Ireland, or is that just more so an excuse for us to drink?
Oh, no. It's an excuse for us to drink, but the rest of the world jumps on too. But
yeah.
Oh, it's a big one for us. Well, drinking.
I gotcha.
There's no like family dinners. It's just go drink. Yeah.
I love it. That's what holidays should be.
A normal Saturday anyway. You just take it up a few percentage.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Well, dude, as we were talking right before we pushed record, it's been a few months. Lots of busyness on your end. I've been keeping busy as well. So keep the people up to speed here. I know we're mostly going to be talking about some of the recent studies that you've been doing and some really cool findings that you've made. But what's been up inside and outside of school lately?
Yeah, I think when we did our last podcast, I started a massing phase. So I took a real super slow kind of massing approach. I gained like 2.5 kilos over like 6 months. So super slow. And to be honest, I was hitting maintenance calories every day at least, and like a micro surplus. But my body comp when I finished up before this cut was like I had a tiny bit more fat, but I visibly more muscle. And then I kind of confirmed that when I got down to like 83 kilos 2 weeks ago, I looked like I did back when I was 81 kilos last year. So that's like
there
kind
we
of
go.
So
nice.
Yeah, we discussed this before. Like I'm definitely on the boat of you don't need much of a surplus at all, depending on your training age. And I think it's the surplus is used as like a safety blanket, like especially if it's like 500 calories, you know, which is fine if you don't want to dial in like, you know, workout or nutrition timing and, you know, tracking your lifts and being meticulous. A surplus is just kind of a safety net. But I think, you know, over 300 calories, I think, unless you're early beginner or early intermediate, I think it's too much. I don't know what your opinion is on that.
Dude, the more and more I mass, the more and more I agree with you. And I'm glad you actually brought this up. I had a kind of like a family friend, a younger guy who's he's probably like 18 years old, still early on in his fitness journey. He was asking me this exact question in the DMs, and I need to get back to him because, man, like you said, maybe the only time where a surplus of, 500 or greater, just slightly over 500 calories is applicable is when you are just really reaping in those newbie gains and, you just have a high proclivity to put on muscle. But I'm with you now, man. Now that we've been training for multiple years, it's just so easy to get fat. It's so easy to go off the rails with it. I've done it. I don't know if you've done it. Have you ever had like a just dreamer YOLO bulk where you put on a little too much fat?
Never a dreamer, but like more like a daydream, if that makes sense. But you're so right. You start, trying to be conservative, and then one weekend gets away from you, and you're kind of like, fuck it, I'm fat now. And then you just keep going. When in reality, if you know the physiology, like if you're gaining too fast, you just don't gain for a while. You're still going to build muscle and maintenance calories. I mean, something we did in college was like the average athlete stores like 800 grams of glycogen and like 80,000 calories worth of adipose tissue. Are you telling me that some of those calories can't go to muscle gain if your training stimulus is high? So anyone out there who's gaining too fast, don't be like, oh, I have to keep gaining. Just chill out for a few weeks and then start gaining slowly again, But again, if your training is going well and you're sleeping well and you're hitting your protein, I mean, under the hood, you're growing muscle. Maybe it's not as much, but yeah, that's my take on it. And even for early beginners, it's a double-edged sword because, yeah, you're going to build tons of muscle. So that's the time to really do an old school 90s bulk. But the other side is maybe these guys don't have the skill set to fat loss later. And they don't have the mental game to kind of look out of shape for a little bit of time. And maybe they stop training altogether. They realize it's not for them. So I think if you want to do dreamer bulk and you're a year into training and you have your ducks in a row and you know how to lose fat, go for it. If you don't know how to lose fat, I would definitely knock around maintenance calories, you know, improve your nutrient timing, protein in the morning, protein before bed. You're still going to build a ton of muscle, but you're not going to put on a ton of fat and kind of have your psychology go out the window. I don't know what your thoughts on that is, but that's kind of my take with clients who are new to training. I'm like, chill out about the surplus. Can you even train for 4 weeks in a row without missing a session? If that's not the case, forget about the surplus, because stimulus is number one. Nutrition is number two. People forget that. So it's really important. I feel for people though, because they see stuff on Instagram, oh, you need a surplus, and there's nuance they're lacking, you know?
Yeah. A lot of, like you said, a lot of context and nuance that might be lacking there that can hurt you in the long run. But I really like the way you kind of posit the pros and cons. And man, like you said, like one dreamer bulk can derail someone for life. Like if they get too fat, they just might say like, man, like this is like, I looked like this before and now I'm putting all this time into the gym. So like, what's the point?
They look worse. You know what I mean? They're training hard and they look worse. That's tough for someone psychologically if they're new to it.
Yeah. I mean, you bring up a great point in that there's so much low hanging fruit to make sure. It's kind of like if someone were to consider going on PEDs, like, are you nailing all the variables before you start injecting yourself with something? Like, are you nailing, and it's much less severity with bulking.
Yeah.
Are you nailing the stuff before you really start pounding food and putting on body fat? Like that's definitely a good thing to keep in mind. Definitely a different way than I thought of it, but I think you have a great point, man.
Yeah, I think that's such a good point. If you don't have a logbook, like if you can't tell me what you hack squatted last week, forget about a surplus and forget about PEDs. But I actually knew a guy in a gym I worked in about 2 years ago, and he had potential. Like he was super strong, so he's pretty fast twitch, obviously. But he would train for like 2 weeks and I'd see him in there, and technique, forget about it. Didn't want to listen to me, but whatever. He was still lifting weights. And I then wouldn't see him for like 2 weeks, and he would go like you last week. He would go rave partying.
Legend.
I know it's got to be done, but like you probably got a little bit of sleep in, a little bit of food. This guy would go 3 days without eating, sleeping like 6 hours over 3 days. I mean, you're not just plateauing, you're losing muscle there. And then he started taking testosterone, man, like a month later. Classic, because he's not patient. And I was like, you can't even string together 6 months of training and going to bed, you know, before midnight, and you want to take testosterone. I mean, I don't know what he's doing now. I'm not in that gym anymore, but it's a slippery slope. You got to have your ducks in a row before any of those kind of things.
It's like health complications inbound.
Oh yeah, I think I've seen him a few times around the town, and just that classic, like, I don't know if he started taking growth, but like classic puffy face, you know, when your ears get bigger and your chin gets bigger. So yeah, and like
he's probably blasting. Like he's taking a lot.
And I mean, let's be honest, that guy, I know that guy. He lifts because he wants to go to the beach and look good for women. Absolutely fair enough. I mean, you're, what's that phrase? Cutting off your nose, spite your face. I mean, you're ruining your face to mildly improve your physique, but in reality, you're in the game to get chicks. Like it just doesn't make sense.
All it's gonna happen is he's gonna get dudes coming up to him and be like, "Bro, how much do you bench?" Like that's how it always goes.
Yeah,
Okay. Also, funny note that you brought up about. So, for those who don't follow me on Instagram, I went to Ultra Music Festival, which is like a big music festival, EDM rave scene in Miami, Florida, and I have heard of this before, but I actually talked to someone because they came up to me and were like, "Oh, bro, like you look like you stay in shape." I'm like, "Yeah, man, thank you. Like you hit the gym." And he's like, "I ran a cycle just for this." I'm like, "Okay, like that's cool." So yeah, the classic testosterone, Anavar, and I don't know. There's one other thing that I was like, people. Like it's chill.
Yeah, and it's like, you know, this, if you're, I mean, we get into it for maybe a little bit of external validation, but if you're not doing it like as in it's you versus you, you're never going to last long term, because there's always going to be someone who has a better physique than you, always. And if you're natural, you got to, you know, flick through your Instagram and look at guys that are triple your size, but like it doesn't matter as long as you're better than last year or 6 months ago. that's long-term adherence. If you're like doing a cycle for a music festival, fuck, that guy's not going to be lifting in 5 years. He's going to be doing triathlon and other shit.
Right. Exactly.
Like, it's got to be for you. And that's the only reason, because especially physique sports, forget about like basketball or rugby where it's a team sport. Like, there's so many things outside of your control in regards to you having a better physique than the person beside you, like even just your height or muscle insertions. So like, yeah, you can train hard and eat good for a long time, but it still doesn't mean you're going to have a better physique than some guy who trains twice a week and barely eats, because he started from X, he's more fast twitch, X or Y, whatever reason. So yeah, I think it's a slippery slope for external validation in terms of your lifting. Like, it's nice when someone says you look good, don't get me wrong, but it should be you mostly.
Oh yeah. She's 10 minutes in and we are already dropping the heat on them. So it sounds like, training's been solid. You've been putting on some lean tissue. And dude, what else has been new? I know you're busy with school, everything going well there. Anything else, personal life? Hit me with it, man. I'm interested to hear.
Yeah, the personal life is just school and training, so I need to do better. I'm gonna try. I know you just slip into, okay, if I go out Saturday night, it'll be fun, but damn, will it affect Sunday? But I think, as you said before we jumped on air, it's a balance is needed. So this summer, I'm definitely going to be like, all right, every second Saturday, I may not build muscle because I'm drinking that day, but I'm stacking the signal, enjoying myself, and get back to it. So that's my personal goals now coming into this summer. Now I say that, and then when the Saturday runs around and I crush the leg session, you're kind of like, ooh. But you can
hold the couch.
Hold it to me. If I'm not posting anything on Instagram, with a few beers involved, you hold me accountable so I get out and about.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, I'm excited to see what you get into, the people that you meet. It's gonna be good. Like you said, man, the balance is everything. Most of the time we're locked in, but we had kind of briefly brought up the fact that like a lot of the people that we might have like community with on Instagram, like they're super locked in, and it's like, hey, like, don't forget, you get one trip around, I guess, unless you believe in reincarnation. So like, try to enjoy it a little bit.
Yeah, no, I think it's just because the more you know how things affect it. But I'm definitely, I'm as locked in as ever, but I'm going to have way more balance now. And I have, and you're so right. Like, lifting is just that small, and like, if your physique is getting better, how are you going to know unless you go meet people and they're like, geez, you look bigger? I mean, that's half of it. You know what I mean? But a lot of, I think it depends who your kind of circle is. Like, a lot of my friends would know how to enjoy themselves. That's talking it down. So I think being in that environment, you can only go so long before you actually get dragged out, which I think is a good thing. So I'm thankful my friends still text me, even though I say no for a beer. I say no 90% of the time, but I'm glad they still text me, because when they stop, then you're in trouble.
Yeah, man, that's true too. Like, it's important. I'm glad you have like this type of friends that just like, and like, Daniel, he's just locked in, he's doing his thing, like not really interested in what we were doing. But yeah, like, I think that's a great point to bring up, because the social component is just so important for like your well-being. I feel like, like you said, man, you just got to have that balance. And if one part is missing, it can affect the other things. Like, you might have like the perfect gym routine, but if you're unhappy, like getting depressed because you're never hanging out with friends, and you don't always have to drink. Like, I know we're talking about like partying and drinking. It doesn't always have to be that, can be, but man, like, I feel like that little like isolation and depression that can creep in from never having that interaction can definitely affect your lifts and your happiness. And bringing up some good points here.
Yeah, I think like, even if you reverse engineer it and you are just focused on improving yourself as an athlete, I mean, as you said there, for you to adhere long term, you need to have balance and be happy. So even if you kind of frame it that way in your mind, that actually going out, not drinking or drinking, is actually going to improve your physique long term, if you have to frame it that way, that's one way to do it, because it's true. Because everyone needs balance. You can lock in for 6 months, maybe even a year, but if you don't have that other side, you're eventually going to burn out, and then you might miss the gym for a month. So it's like one Saturday or a whole month off. If that's the balance, then you got to pick that one Saturday.
Yeah, man. I think we're See, not even the main point of our podcast. This just proves that you have to come back for part 3 as you get into integrating that balance over time. That's going to be our part 3. Mm-hmm. But yeah, man, I know even in our first podcast, we kind of briefly talked about some of the really, really interesting topics that you're learning about for your program. Mm-hmm. In the DMs, we talked about a few different ideas, but I'm super interested to hear like the stuff that's been fascinating to you. And yeah, we can hit on that, see how people can integrate it into their approach and put some of this, like you said, put this knowledge to the test and really solidify our understandings.
Yeah, I think I'll try keep it like not physiology heavy, so people understand what's going on. But I think we might leave it a little bit because I think we'll go down a rabbit hole, like the whole thing of the rep range debate coming up again. And
yeah.
Like people like the University of TikTok kids thinking fatigue is one thing when it's so multifaceted. Mm-hmm. So we get into that. But one thing I found really interesting that I was studying lately, we had to find 5 research papers, pick one and kind of reverse engineer and pretend that we are like the researchers. So I picked, does muscle damage contribute to muscle growth? And I found that super interesting. So if you want to dive in there, we can kind of look at that a little bit.
Yeah. Very interested to hear it. I'll give you like because it's been 5 years, right, since I've graduated from undergrad, really being in like a intense study. So I'm sure information has changed and I'm probably wrong, but I'll tell you my thoughts real quick and you can correct me. So to my understanding, muscle damage is one of the components that contributes to hypertrophy. But that being said, there's many ways that you can impart damage on a muscle cell, and that's not always constructive for hypertrophy. So I would say, yeah, it's like part of the puzzle, but I think people they hear these things and they kind of get it skewed, and it can just, like you said, like TikTok University, people just go about years and years of training suboptimally as a result. So I'm super interested to, if you want to hit us with the base physiology, explain it, and then, see how we can apply it. That sounds like a really interesting one.
Yeah, I think you're on the track there. I mean, like, let's take a marathon, for example. I mean, how much muscle damage are you inducing there? Loads. But I mean, the only people growing from a marathon are people who've been on the couch for the last 10 years, and they'll probably grow a little bit, right. But like, you know what a marathon runner looks like. They don't look pretty jacked, and that's insane muscle damage. So it's kind of like a double-edged sword. So if you do cause a lot of muscle damage, like you would know this, let's just say you were hack squatting for 6 months and then you switch to a high bar back squat. That novelty is going to fuck you up, right? And you're kind of thinking, oh, this is great. But essentially from the research, muscle damage, it does increase muscle protein synthesis. So people think, oh, whoa, that's great. But that muscle protein synthesis is geared towards repair of proteins, like actually kind of fixing, like if you crash a car, you're fixing the car, you're not making it better. So too much muscle damage, it does spike muscle protein synthesis, but it goes to repairing those proteins, not building new ones or not building them bigger. So that's one side to it. But then the other side, which is really confusing, is if you want long-term muscle growth, as the muscle cell gets bigger, you're going to need more nuclei to control that muscle cell. So muscle damage does cause satellite cell proliferation. So it's kind of like this double-edged sword of, to use like a real practical takeaway. If you kind of trained your chest yesterday and it's sore to the touch, I mean, that's probably golden. But if you trained your chest yesterday and you can't put your shirt on, you're probably gone too far the other way, where you're not getting any growth, you're just getting repair. And then you take a fat loss phase, where if you're sore the entire time during a fat loss phase, I mean, that's no bueno at all, because you're definitely you're actually going to be putting yourself under pressure just to maintain your tissue. So I think it's that sore to the touch, you kind of have to go look for it, not like obliterate sore, where say you did stiff leg deadlifts yesterday and you can't tie your shoelaces. I mean, that's too far the other end. That's kind of my take from the literature. But again, as you know this, you have a science degree. I mean, we're kind of just guessing from what stuff says. That's our take at the moment. But if you logically think about it, it makes sense. And it's the same as like, if you see like basketball players in season when they play like 3 games a week, they actually can't store glycogen as effectively because of the damage they're creating. So it's kind of this way. Obviously, training makes you more sensitive to glycogen and insulin sensitivity, but too much like actually fucks up the muscle cell that actually can't take glycogen in because it's using all that energy to repair the cell. So it's really, really similar. You want a little bit of damage that you kind of get that disruption, but you don't want so much that all the kind of resources go to fixing shit, not making it better, if that makes sense.
Yeah, man, you brought like a really good framework there. Yeah, for a practical example, like I can talk about kind of like a session that I hit last week with Shimmy, which we were briefly talking about before we pushed record. But yeah, I'll just go ahead. I want to pull up a video of the session. So I think we did a good job of doing some auto regulation, which basically is just like, hey, like let's make a quick change within this workout. Because I think my muscle damage could have gotten to a point where like recovery just wouldn't have happened, and it would have kind of been like a not as productive of a session. Absolutely. So yeah, I'm just sharing this tab here. On this session with Shimmy last week, we definitely went pretty hard on these hack squats. So there was a couple of new, like you're talking novel stimulus. Would you say novel stimulus is something that correlates pretty closely with muscle damage? From what you understand.
Yeah, it's like if you're someone who lifts 5 days a week, but you don't run, go for a run and see how fucked up you get. So absolutely. But like it's a tool, man. You know, if hack squats are getting stale, making a switch is a really good tool for growth. But it's like if you were, you know, doing 4 sets of hack squats and you switch, don't do 4 sets of barbell back squats. Do like 1 or 2 maybe. Well, I think people go wrong there. They're like, oh, hack squat, back squat. I did 5 sets last week. I'll just do 5 sets. And that's when you can't walk for a week and you miss your next leg session. Or you pick up a little knee, you know. But it probably even affects like your bent rowing 2 days later because you can't bend over. So you fuck the whole microcycle by a lot of it. Yeah, a lot of it's just ego. I did 5 sets last week, but you know, you gotta be when you're in the gym, you don't do what you want to do, you do what you have to do. So you try to be a pro. So absolutely. Yeah. But look at your technique there. I mean, knees out to the side. That's beautiful.
Yeah, man. Yeah. Interesting case study here. You'll probably get a kick out of this too in the listeners. So Shimmy has these 5-inch yoga blocks, which ironically, I have the same model of hack squat. It's the Nautilus hack squat at the gym that I do hack squats at. So I was very used to the hack squat, but I have never used that 5-inch extra for the range of motion by placing those yoga blocks under my shoulders. So yeah, like just much deeper of a stretch. Like, yeah, you can kind of barely see them because of the lighting, but yeah, like much bigger range of motion. Then we parlay that with the fact that, like I said, you know, like really wasn't paying super close focus on the diet. Like I tried to get protein in, but you know, I was on vacation, so it's not going to happen as it would in a controlled environment. Standing like 9 hours in the day, dancing, walking, not sleeping, drinking alcohol, not staying hydrated, just like the epiphany of this is like a way that, you know, we're going to endure a ton of muscle damage and probably not be able to recover from it.
Maybe you might even have lost damage if you did too much. But one thing to take away from that is 5 inches makes a big difference. So that's
it does. Yeah, it does.
Man's like 5 inches. Okay.
I'm dead.
Yeah. But like it just shows you though. But like you're so seasoned that you're like, okay, you're probably pretty in the mood to train hard because you're with like a training partner like Shimmy's, obviously, as we discussed, so experienced, and you want to push yourself, but you know, like, okay, hold on, I'm not sleeping, I'm drinking alcohol. That's the last time I had, you know, some carbs. So it sounds like you did the right thing, even though you probably really wanted to push it.
Yeah.
But if you were going to a rave that night and you trained super hard, like you definitely could have lost muscle. Whereas
exactly.
2 sets is keeping everything around. It's a long year, you know, just keep everything around, go from there.
Exactly, man. Yeah. And we cut volume on hacks. We did the front foot elevated Smith machine reverse lunge, cut volume there. And then everything else was pretty low, like fatigue low with imparting fatigue. So yeah, we pretty much did like hamstring curls and like calves from there, but it wasn't like super wrecked from that, of course. So yeah, definitely is like in times like those, muscle damage, like you said, like you probably can go catabolic, breaking down muscle, not reaping the benefits of that hard session you just did. But yeah, man, sorry to go off on a little bit of a tangent there, but it's like good examples like that where can kind of put that into perspective. I'm really interested to hear how, that kind of relates with, some of the things we talked about, like the rep ranges, different, like, like recovering from fatigue. Definitely interested to hear your thoughts there.
Yeah. Like I remember you sent me one of your TikToks, and the TikTok brigade with with all their experience and qualifications, they were like, that's so fatiguing. And like you were pre-exhausting, and they were like, why would you do that? I was like, well, I'm actually trying to manage fatigue so I can kind of disrupt my quads a little bit so I don't have to put something really heavy on my back. I mean, that's really smart, but what did they say? They just couldn't get it, that like you would pre-exhaust your quads. I mean,
yeah, basically like one guy, and he was trying to be thoughtful. Like I think he really did believe this. He thought that because of the fatigue generated, basically it was like leg extensions and then hack squats, like you said, to limit the amount of total fatigue imparted from having to like hack squat super heavy. And he was like, right. Yeah. Pretty normal for those who have been around the block for a time or two. And he was like, yeah, you won't really get any benefit from your hack squats because your muscle cells are already too fatigued in your quads. I'm like, buddy, I disagree there.
Yeah. Like it goes back to these guys, and I would have done it when I was younger as well. Everyone's done it. It's like you're making these claims, but like, can you reverse engineer why? Like what's happening at the molecular level? And of course they couldn't, But I think it's this whole brigade I'm seeing, like anything over, if the last 5 reps are the most effective, why would you do more than 5 reps? I mean, intellectually, that's the worst argument I've ever heard. Now, I do get where they're coming from for sure. Like if you just think black and white, but like life is multicolored. So I don't know if you've seen much of that. Like,
yeah.
Do you follow Dylan Jones? He's a Welsh dude. He's like 20 years old. Do you follow him on Instagram? No,
I don't think I do actually. I'll pull him up though.
I think you probably do, because it's all like we all follow each other in this small community.
I probably do and just forgot. His name is Dylan Jones.
Dylan Jones, yeah.
Oh yeah. I know this kid. Yep, that's right.
He's absolutely blowing up. Like you talk about the time for a surplus. Like he looks, every time he posts a physique update, he looks like a different person. So he's obviously doing something right. But his comments, man, I actually had to stop myself going into his comments because like the lack of brain cells in some of the comments, no offense to the guys, but especially like this whole don't go over 5 rep thing. I just can't believe it's still a thing in 2025 that people think, even 10 reps or 25 reps isn't stimulative,
Yeah, dude, that's super interesting. Man, okay, so that blows my mind that that's like a critique. Yeah, that's good for him though. I'm glad he's blowing up.
Oh man, he's getting there. Like, but I don't know what is. A lot of nearly every post would have some crazy comments in there.
Really? Oh yeah, we'll try to find one. That's so.
Hopefully, it'd be classic if you can find them. But probably if you go back a few months, you'll see me in there trying to fight the trenches. But like, it's a good point because I found I was like getting pissed off, and B, like if you're in the Instagram comments, very few people are gonna have a mindset of trying to learn something new or seeing someone else's perspective, probably including myself. So I'm right. You type a lovely comment, you kind of explain how things work physiologically. They don't want to hear it,
Yeah.
One guy actually tagged me. He'd like 42 followers, not that I have a lot, but like the classic 42 followers, been lifting 6 months, dumbbell ladder raising, like big ass dumbbells with his arms completely bent, almost like a reverse curl, the classic. And he was tagging me in the stories, like saying anything over 10 reps is ridiculous. The masters you're doing is stupid. Like they must be teaching you like pseudoscience. I was just like, oh shit, like life is too short for this.
Wild.
You know what I mean? Like it's Instagram isn't a conducive place to learn something like a podcast is, over you know, an hour or whatever it is. But like, yeah, I just think it's a set. I learned my lesson. I'm done going into the comments. Like, even I posted something about, you know, is a sissy squat better than a back squat? And I would never say either or is better. But one guy commented, oh, sissy squats are unstable. And I was like, did you watch the video? And he said, yeah. I was like, did you see that we're holding on to something to remove stability as a factor? And no reply. So like, I actually love your opinion. I would argue that a back squat with a bar on your back is way more unstable than a sissy squat body weight where you're holding on. I mean, you have to have bandwidth with a bar on your back. You know, you got to keep your ribs up. You got to descend in a straight line, or you're going to tip forward. On a sissy squat, you just hold on. And like, if a sissy squat goes wrong, it's unloaded. Nothing's going to happen. So I would argue that a back squat is more unstable than a sissy squat. But like, you give them the information in front of them and they don't want to hear it. So what's the point, you know?
Yeah, man. Like you said, there's certain mediums that are more conducive for learning than others. But man, it's like people just really, I think really the focus when you're learning about these things is just take a pause and try to consider everything, not just one piece of the puzzle, but the entire, you know, pieces that make up this puzzle, right? So like stability, hugely important component for hypertrophy. But that being said, like, man, there's so many other things that go into it. So that's definitely an interesting critique that like of those differences, he picked up stability. Like, man, like if I were going to make a critique, I wouldn't go for that. And yeah, it's like, there's just so many different components that it's like, hey, before you think to comment, before you think to, you know, just like making assumptions, like think about the grand scale of the thing at hand. Yeah, it's just crazy. Oh man, it's like it's a good and a bad thing that we have these open lines of communication with social media in the comment sections, because it's a great way to spread ideas. But man, like people can just get so far off track so quickly.
I think, you need to think big picture. And we can talk about big picture at rep ranges, because I do get what they're saying. Like, especially a lot of these guys are like 19, 20 or 21, probably even younger, like 16 first few months of lifting. And like, I didn't know anything at 16, so fair enough. But it's like, obviously the modern world, you know, you can communicate with everyone. So if you think big picture with rep ranges, like 5 to 10, no one's arguing that that's the most superior. Now, there's not much difference between 9 reps and 19 and then 29. There's probably a small difference. But like, again, to think big picture, how long can you train in the 5 to 10 rep range with how many exercises before your elbows get sore, before your knees get sore, or your CNS takes a cigarette break and just runs away for 3 months? So do most of your lifts 5 to 10, especially that's what I would, when I'm coaching clients and they're new to training, it's nearly all 5 to 10 because they can't push metabolite pain. We're learning technique. Fatigue is the enemy. You know, no one can do like a lengthened partial squat and keep tension in their quads for like sets of 20 when they're new to training. They're just going to turn it into like a good morning. So why would you program that? But then it goes back to, okay, sets of 7 on a hack squat. Okay, sounds pretty good. Are you really going to do sets of 7 lateral raises with dumbbells? Like, it's a true. I mean, my elbows are sore thinking about that. So if these guys were to take a step back and realize, okay, just in terms of exercise selection, some things are more conducive to the 5 to 10, some 10 to 20, and a little bit 20 to 30, especially if you're training around injury or fat loss phases or supersets. But then think 6 months down the line, you want to put in a block of work when you're new to training. You're like 19, you don't need any deloads. You just go for 6 months and you put on a load of size. For that to actually happen, if you train the 5 to 10 rep range solely, I promise you, an elbow is going to pop up, a shoulder is going to pop up, a knee is going to get niggly. It's just not possible to train long term. And then you go to someone like me and you training a decade, when you're periodizing your week. I mean, for me, I might have 2 exercises or 3 in the 5 to 10 rep range. Any more, my CNS is cooked.
Yeah.
And it goes back to fatigue. Like, people think a set of 18 is more fatiguing than a set of 8. Like, what's your opinion on that? Like, obviously there's metabolic fatigue and then there's like neurological. I mean, it's not really possible to say which one is more fatiguing, but that's something you hear a lot in the comments, like even in like Dr. Mike posts, like 18 reps, how fatiguing is that? Well, Dr. Mike doing a set of 18, you know, incline curls in comparison to 8 barbell curls, I guarantee you the 8 barbell curls is going to fatigue him more.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's a lack of big picture. Sorry to go on a there, but yeah.
No, that's a good point. That's a good point. Yeah, it is. It is really just considering the big picture. That's man. The 10 rep range. That's so crazy. Like,
still,
man, like that's so crazy that like think of just all of the like Mr. Olympias who don't even have like an inkling of science, but it's like you're gonna tell Phil Heath that who like did higher reps for arms.
Mm-hmm.
You're gonna tell him that. Which isn't always the most sound argument that like, oh, like Mr. Olympias did it, but it's like, man, like that's a very, very limited scope to view your potential for fitness. That's like a great way of just really focusing on keeping the whole picture in mind and just like don't get dogmatic about something in fitness because it'll always come back to bite you. Have you ever had any like things that I forget if we talked about this in the first episode, any things that you were like super dogmatic about at some point prior in your fitness career that you ended up looking back on like, wow, that was kind of stupid that I was so, so zoned in on that one thing.
Yeah. Like, unfortunately, like I was like, I'm too dedicated for deloads, same as anyone. So
I
don't need a deload. That was, but like, it always goes to when I have clients going, if I work with the client for a while and they're like, do I have to deload? I'll know it, like, let's just say on week 3, they had a work party, they missed a few days. Okay, we can push it one more week. Or are you just doing what you want to do instead of what you have to do? But I think I always say to them, and it always works because most of my clients are pretty kind of, they have a lot of like internal agency. They're pretty driven. It's like, if you don't deload, you don't train hard. End of discussion. That guy who kept tagging me, he commented on a few of my posts. I was talking about fatigue management. He was like, if you have to deload, your fatigue management's off. And I was like, this guy is so far away from the goalposts. It's insane. It's like, there isn't many things in sports science, as you know, that are like pretty unequivocal, but like overload training over time will increase like anabolic hormones up to a point, and then it goes that way. And that's unequivocal. The sky is blue. We breathe oxygen. So I think I didn't take deloads for only until a couple of years ago. And then I remember, have you ever trained for a few weeks and never been able to get a pump? It's like your muscles aren't there.
Yeah, you did tell me about that. Yeah. Honestly, I've never done that, but that's like, that's what it is. Yeah, man. Like that's gotta be what it is to not. Yeah.
You go to like your go-to exercises. Like for me, if I want to get a back pump or a bicep pump, I do inverted rows. So you go to your big guns and you still don't get a pump. And you're like, oh shit. And then like you even just take the weekend off, Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and you come back and like your muscles are alive again. You're looking around, you're like, oh, maybe these guys with masters and PhDs in sports science are onto something here. You know, I just wish people would think about that more. Like, if you're 16 and you're in high school and you think you know more than like Eric Helms or Milo Wolf or Dr. Mike, I mean, the confidence of these people. And that's another point. The more I learn, man, I really have to work on my confidence and imposter syndrome. The more I learn, like I'm doing immune infiltration now, and I have a little bit of a grasp on it. But like, the more you learn, the more I learn, the less I know, the less confident I am, which is, I think, is a good way to be. And that's why I try to frame things as, I think this will happen. This might happen. This is a good option. It's never like barbell bent rows, build more muscle and pull-ups, end of discussion. It's like, that's the way you want to be. And don't get me wrong, sometimes I'm probably overconfident on stuff, and I probably have been already, but like, that's if you want to be a really good coach, forget about just like building your own physique as an athlete. If you want to be a good coach, you have to be open-minded. But even as an athlete, if you want to lift, 10, 15 years and get a truly, hopefully natural, no one's doing too many PEDs, hopefully a really nice natural physique in 10 years time, you have to be open-minded and you can't be dogmatic,
Yeah, man, dude, I feel like in terms of the muscle damage and just like keeping that open mind to that, the fatigue management as it pertains to muscle damage, I feel like that was a good point. Did you have any closing thoughts on that specific part? Because I'm definitely interested to hear all of the different things that you've been learning, man. I know you have you've been busy. You've been hitting the books hard.
Yeah, like I think with muscle damage, the best practical takeaway is to use it like as any other proxy. Like, I don't know if you're big on proxies. Like, if I'm not getting a pump, like something's up unless I'm, fat loss dieting for a long time. So I use it as a proxy. It's like, especially for exercises you can really eccentrically damage, like hamstrings. If you're doing stiff leg deads and you're not getting sore hamstrings, I mean, something's up there.
Yeah.
Whereas if your delts don't get sore, I don't think it's a big issue, So use it as a proxy, and definitely like soreness to the touch where you go look for it, I think is ideal. But again, it's a proxy I use from when I'm coaching my weekly check-in. Like, did you get sore at all this week? I mean, I think you should get sore at the start of a mesocycle and towards the end. I think you're adapting in the middle. So that would be the practical takeaway from the literature. I don't know about your thoughts on that, using it as a proxy.
Yeah, man. No, I agree. Like, there's like a very fine balance to the soreness, which I do think, is the best proxy that we have. Yeah, I want to say that's probably the best proxy that we have for muscle damage right now. And just keep in mind to everybody out there, like, this is still kind of a part, like Daniel had mentioned, like, still part that needs more elucidation, and definitely is not like 100% like this is law. But I think it's like it is our best proxy. And yeah, man, like, one thing that I'll never forget this, I had a conversation with a guy, back when I was in high school, and I was on the kind of like the dogmatic view. And he was like, yeah, like I just hit the gym and like I'll train a muscle group again when I'm not sore. And I thought at the time, I was like, well, you should probably follow a program and like, try to stay on some type of routine. And while there's definitely something to be said for meeting in the middle there, I think he had some validity to what he said, because like, if you're trying to go in and, you hammer a muscle group so hard, you have a ton of muscle damage, super sore to the touch. And then like, 2-3 days later, because you should be hitting a muscle group every 2 to 3 days, you go in and you're still just wrecked. Like, what are you really doing other than potentially putting yourself in a position to get injured? So yeah, man, that's like I'm a big fan of the proxies. Not a perfect situation, but we got to work with what we got. And I think that's a great way to do it.
I mean, like, I think proxies, like, they're unscientific and scientific, but it's like, take a power athlete or a sprint athlete, like a sprinter. If they're doing, say, like max velocity fly, so they're like jogging for 10 meters and then sprinting, if they don't feel fast that day, that's their proxy. They'll end the session. So I mean, the best sprinters in the world do that. They're like, oh, it's not happening today. Or like, you take like, an Olympic lifter doing snatches or cleans. If that bar speed, which you can track, also the sprinters can track their speed. If that bar speed should be, 0.5 meters per second, and it's not, session's over, something's up. There's no point. You have to look at what you're trying to train for. So most for me and you, it's hypertrophy at the moment. But like, if you're training for power or speed and you're not in that power or speed zone, why would you continue to train? You're just causing fatigue. So if you're a more experienced lifter and you're not getting those feedbacks, you're not getting a pump, you're not feeling tension or getting a burn, I mean, are you just moving weights around? It's not perfect, but it definitely helps guide you, especially with exercise selection. As an intermediate, if you're experimenting with different things, I think it's important to stick with an exercise for at least a mesocycle before you bin it. But like, if you've tried it for 5 weeks and it just ain't clicking, that's okay. And you're using proxies to guide you to the best scenario, And like, if you think, go back to our point on big picture, you didn't waste 5 weeks there. You just realized that, I don't know, dumbbell ladder raise standing just don't do anything for you, but maybe a cable one does. So you didn't waste 5 weeks there. You actually saved yourself like maybe 5 months next year doing them,
Yeah.
So proxies, yeah, people give them a lot of, you always hear the tension brigade as well. Like, it's all about tension, and it is, but you can get internal feedback as an athlete, like someone who's training like 5-6 days a week. I mean, your body. So I think it's a good, it's not perfect, as you said. It's like democracy, maybe. It's like, it's the best option that we have, especially in America. I don't want to get into fucking.
Oh, bro. I was thinking about this heavily, especially this past week with the American tariff stuff. I was like, it's it's a perfect example. I was like, man, like, this is kind of fucked right now. But I'm like, it could be a lot worse. So yeah, we'll take it.
Yeah, look, it's the best that we have. I actually think muscle proxies are better than democracy, just to have that on the record. Yeah, it's same as a sprinter or Olympic lifter. If that bar speed isn't at it should probably be a little faster than that. It should be about a meter per second or 0.75. Or if you have a
Yeah.
sprinter that your top speed's 40 kilometers an hour and you're hitting 36, I mean, what the fuck are we doing here? Go home, legs up, get some carbs in, and tomorrow's another day. Don't just, don't just fatigue yourself without stimulus, because stimulus is the aim of the game.
Yeah. Dude, one thing that's super interesting is with your, I guess we could say it's like maybe like a linear relationship with time that you've been training consistently and your ability to like interpret those proxies. Like, just keep in mind what we're talking about here is for like late intermediate to advanced type of lifters. Like, when you're a beginner, there's going to be so many little voices in your head or feelings where it's like, oh, like, nah, you should stop. Like, you shouldn't do this. I think as a beginner, like if something is clearly wrong and you're not feeling well and you're just like, you're trying to go in and hit the gym and it's just not clicking at all, maybe that's a sign. But man, so early on in the beginner's kind of life cycle of a beginner, when it comes to training for hypertrophy, people will just be like, oh, like this feels a little weird, or like, oh man, like today's just not really hitting. I'm going to mail it in and go home. Definitely is one to keep in mind, like that, that ability to auto regulate. And like you said, with the sprinter example, if you're pretty far off of the numbers and the metrics and the proxies that you're supposed to be hitting, like that's a good time to get rest. But for the beginners out there, it's like, hey, make sure, you are really giving it that effort before you mail it in and go home.
Yeah, that's an amazing point. And I think, sometimes I'd have discussions with maybe clients and they're not at that stage yet. And they kind of look at me with their eyes on. I'm like, okay, forget what I just said. I think there's a nice framework to work on there. And I think if it's your first year of training for 3 years, I'd be worried about two things. One is consistency and two is technique. Forget muscle connection, forget pumps, forget even like visually how you look. You need to get really, really good technique, because that's your foundation for the rest of your lifting career. And then you need to fall in love with the process and be consistent before you worry about, am I getting a pump if it's a dumbbell lateral raise or it's a cable one? So that's so important. You got to kind of, and it might sound patronizing, but it's a phase that everyone needs to get through. And if you're in that phase right now and you love lifting, it'll be shorter for you because you're going to be consistent. But I think it's really important to dial in technique before anything, because it's like learning a language. Like your CNS learns a movement in a certain way. It's going to be really hard to change that when it's ingrained for 3 years. So you see people, they squat poorly and it takes a long time to change. It's like how you throw a football when you were a kid. It's not going to change much. There's a reason why there's no, I don't know, NBA basketball coach who's changing how Steph Curry throws the ball. I mean, the billions of reps he has or more neural pathways, he can't change how he wants to throw the ball, so that's your technique. So when you're starting those first 0 to 3 years, just be consistent and technique. Don't worry about relative effort either. Don't worry about pushing yourself. Just go in, lift the weight if it's 30 minutes or 60 minutes. And don't worry if last week was 3 sessions with 60 minutes, if this week is 2 sessions with 30. Just be consistent until about year 3. And I think year 3, then you can start worrying about pushing yourself and paying attention to some proxies. And then maybe year 5, then you're worried about, am I getting a pump? Am I getting sore? But I think those first 0 to 3 years, as you said, so important. If you're listening now, just technique and consistency, and just go easy on yourself. It's really hard as you start, as you said, all those voices in your head saying, this is pointless. This guy's so much bigger than me. If you can be consistent, you will get there. But if you listen to those, and that's the problem with Instagram, you're seeing these, or TikTok, whatever, you're seeing these information for people who've been lifting 10 years. And honestly, it doesn't apply to you, but it just confuses people. So hopefully that does help even one person who's listening, just to be consistent and worry about technique.
Yeah, man, that's like, I would say, a great framework for beginners to follow, like consistency and technique. So basically, like growing up, I played baseball. I was like always a pretty decent baseball player. Never by all means like the all-star of my school, but pretty good part of the team. And I was a pitcher, left-handed. So like left-handed pitchers are just a little, it's a different thing for batters. So it's a good asset to have on the team. And I was always pretty decent up through middle school and into high school. When I got to high school, the baseball coach tried to like completely redesign how I threw. And it was something that like, it's a high school coach. So like you know, you can't really expect like a pro level coach who would probably handle that correctly. But man, like trying to completely re-engineer something is tricky, and you might be in a place where that needs to happen, but it really, it has to be done in a very delicate and well thought out way, because just like the amount that I backslid when I was pitching, like I lost a lot of velocity, and in the long term, I believe this coach was trying to have my best interests at heart. He wanted me to succeed, but like trying to just completely re-engineer a movement pattern, a mechanic for a sport, the way you lift weights, it can be tricky, and it really has to be well thought out. Like basically what ended up happening with the baseball example was, man, like I remember pitching in a couple of games and like something was just off, like struggled with confidence when I was throwing like strikes. It wasn't as fast as I used to throw. So I was just getting fucking destroyed. People were hitting like triples off of me. And I was like, dude, like, I can't pitch anymore. Like I can't do it. And it shattered the confidence. So that's a really good example that you bring there. Like really has to be a delicate process to re-engineer. And that's why I think the technique and consistency for beginners is really where you should be focusing as you're planning that out.
I think there's 2 points I want to make there, and I don't want to go too off tangent, but your example of a coach trying to change your pitch, like, don't get me wrong, you can improve your technique with small tweaks. I haven't formally studied, it's a few sections away, but it's like neural control and movement. Mm-hmm. And you probably remember this. When you threw your best pitch, like, did you think about it, or was it instinctive?
Not at all. Yeah, not at all.
So like that's called subcortical. So that's like the basal ganglia at the bottom of your brain, or going essentially straight from your spine to the movement. You're not thinking about it. But if you remember, even before that coach changed your technique, what were your worst pitches? You were like, oh, should I throw here? Should I throw there? And it was conscious. Whereas when you're an athlete, like I know when I'm playing Gaelic, like if I'm kicking points over the bar, like the best strikes, it's just raw and utter instinctual. It's subcortical from the spine straight out. When you start thinking about kicking, that's when you just, or throwing or whatever it is, that's when things go astray. So when that coach changed things for you, the reason you lost confidence was you were doing something that should be just be nervous system. Like obviously you walk up to the whatever the pitcher's playing. I don't know much about baseball, but you just go, let instinct take over. Let your nervous system do its thing. When you start thinking about it, you're fucked. So thankfully, lifting's not as explosive and you have a bit more room to tweak things, but the same principles apply. If you learn bad technique in that first year or two, I mean, it's going to be a long time before you're squatting. Someone said you got a beautiful squat or a beautiful pull-up. It just makes your life a lot harder. And that's why you want to spend time. And then my other point I wanted to make was not worrying too much about pushing yourself for 2 reasons. So you can be consistent, you don't get sick of the gym, and you kind of like, you're probably likely a little bit unfit because you haven't been doing exercise. So you don't want to make it so hard that you don't want to turn up next week or tomorrow. And the other side of it is, like, take astronauts, for example. Astronauts lose muscle in their quads and their calves. But when they come back, walking is a hypertrophy stimulus, any sort of tension. So if you're new to the gym, you don't need to slab loads of weight on your back squat. The bar is still going to produce tension. You're going to have specialized proteins that detect and measure that tension, cause downstream growth. So don't worry about weight. Don't worry about pushing yourself super hard. Any sort of resistance training is going to cause growth. So that was the second point I wanted to make. I think you don't need to kill yourself when you're in that first 0 to 3 years. Just go in, enjoy it, experiment, good technique. Don't be, thrown up in the trash can after a set of hack squats. Just enjoy yourself.
Yeah, dude, I think that's such a good point. And people might hear that and take it the wrong way. They're like, oh, like you're not supposed to like train hard when you're a beginner. And it's not that at all. Typically, like for you and me, probably when we were beginners, you're just so enthusiastic. You're so excited. You see those motivational videos, or you see like a bodybuilder you want to try to replicate, and you're going in there and you're just like going hard as fuck. And it's not good. Technique's terrible. You're not really directing the stimulus of lifting the weights to the muscles that you're intending to grow. So to tie that together, I'll never forget a Dr. Mike analogy that I heard that made a ton of sense to me. For me, I actually apply this to my business, but I think it really applies to beginners in the gym as well. And he's like, when like a crew is building a battleship, they're not trying to go in and, you know, make the most progress they possibly can every day.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, over time, like, stuff is going to go bad. Like, maybe they're going to lose their focus. Maybe they're just going to get burnt out and they can't get to work. But he's like, they have a plan, they execute, and they get done what they need to get done in that plan. And over time, like over the course of 1 to 3 years or whatever, that battleship gets built. And I think that's so pertinent and applicable to your lifting, especially as a beginner. It's like, hey, like, just put in that work, like put in the work that's in the plan. You know, hopefully you're following a program or working with a great coach like Daniel. And man, just like doing the work that's needed. You don't always have to go. Maybe there's a fun session where you go balls to the wall, but that's not all the time. That's not, you know, your 99%. I think that's a really, really good point. And it's almost counterintuitive, but it's like big picture, guys, big picture, 10 years.
Yeah, that's the theme of the show, man. Big pictures. It takes 10 years to build a quality natural physique, and you got to think long term. But to that point, like the motivational videos, going crushing a session, like you'd agree with this. It's easy to go balls to the wall for one session. What's hard is setting up 3 mesocycles that are 5 weeks long, deload in between, and not missing a fucking session, pushing yourself a little bit easier at the start, overreaching at the end for 15 goddamn weeks. Anyone can go in and train hard for 60 minutes and take 3 days off. That's bullshit. That isn't training hard. Training hard is holding yourself back on week 1 and knowing, okay, my logbook says 21 sets today. I beat performance yesterday. I'm not overreached. I've got a carb shake here. It's time to go to war for these 21 sets. And then do that again for 5 weeks, deload, and then again for 5 weeks. And then year after year. That's not a Hollywood. It's not a motivational mashup, but that's actually hard. Anyone can go put the headphones in and train hard for 60 minutes. That's not really, as you said, the battleship analogy. That's not really the aim of the game, is it?
Yeah, man. Yeah, that's a really, really, dude. That's like the hard thing isn't going in and smoking yourself. It's like checking those boxes on the plan long term. And I think that's why like you and me, you know, maybe we're not the most like genetically, like I'm sure obviously you're a fucking stud, bro. I see those physique updates and those training videos, but I'm sure there were probably people that you played sports with or went to school with that were more gifted than you. But it's like, and the way that I look at it is like, man, like, what are they doing now with their physique? Not that it really matters in the grand scheme of life, right? Like life is much bigger than just what you look like and that shit. But like, you know, if you want to build something and you're really truly passionate about fitness, it's like, hey, take that long-term approach. And that's with everything in life, man. So yeah, just to add in that.
To jump on that real quick before we move on, like when I was kind of 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, I would have played like elite sport. It was amateur, but technically in Ireland, it was elite sport. So people would pay money, watch it on TV. And I think back to myself then, and I thought I was dedicated. I thought I was an elite athlete. And now, like, I just lift weights and look in the mirror and take selfies. Now, I'm hopefully going to play sport next year. I got to sort my hip out. But I'm so much more elite and so much more of a pro in my approach now. And all I do at the moment is lift weights. So it's funny. It's like, as you said, where are those people now? It is a long-term thing. And it's really, your physique is like a microcosm of your life for most people. I think if you can get your health and fitness in order, it may take a little bit of time, but for me, it's filtered into school, relationships, confidence, kindness, improving your business. It's really like the first port of call if you have a good physique and good health. And it doesn't guarantee you'll get better at those things, but like that's the framework. You're like, okay, I'm consistent. I need to do what I have to, not what I want to. I need to be a pro. I need to hold back when it's time. I need to go for it when it's time. And I mean, if you apply that to school or business, relationships, or even just like having, you know, a better relationship with yourself and just enjoying the passage of time, that's the framework. That's why I think fitness is so much more powerful than like just looking good in the mirror. That's cool for sure. We're human beings. That's cool. But like, it's a framework just to go follow for everything else in your life, in my opinion.
Yeah, man. Like, and especially because you brought up that like decade thing, like if you want to have like a great natural physique, it will probably take a decade. Like there's so many, and that's not to say you won't have a good looking physique in 3-5 years of lifting. But if you want to really, really do the thing, like I'm thinking like I'm still, I'd consider myself on the way there because like my training has been all over like a powerlifting, weightlifting, hypertrophy now for about 5 years. But like, yeah, I'm fully okay with the fact that like 5 more years of hypertrophy training, like I'm trying to give a pro, like a natural pro card a run in like 5 years or maybe even less. Dude, same thing like you said with business. Like sometimes I'll get discouraged about like the state of my coaching business, or I'll be like, man, like I had to go get like a full-time job again. And it's like, oh, but really you've only been doing like fitness coaching for money for like 5 years. And like of that, how much time were you actually really locked in? Same with like the stock market. Like if people are trying to save money and invest, like you can't like be scared and hear the noise. That's not financial advice, but like you have to put time into it. Right.
Yeah.
And yeah, man, like you said, it is just like a great framework. I'm glad you brought that up because that's such a powerful takeaway.
Yeah, not to get too philosophical, but it goes back to the comparing yourself in terms of physique. There's so many things outside of your control, re your business, that like you just can't control. You know, some people start a coaching business and they blow up and they're full time, and are they a better coach than me? No, it's just the reality of the universe that there's a billion things outside of our control, and there's this tiny little space, which is our mindset and our thoughts and our actions, in which we can control. You're getting back to it. That's all you can do. Because in reality, the more, like, not that I'm fucking Socrates, but I read a lot of philosophy. The more I read, it's like, all right, we actually have like literally no control. Like literally, it's so small. All we can do is control our actions and our thoughts. And as long as you're making progress and it's you, I mean, that's all life is, you know?
Yeah, dude. What a different turn this podcast took, but I feel like it's necessary, right? And it's all good.
Yeah. That's lifting, man. Lifting is kind of life. It's long term.
Oh yeah, it is. It is. Yeah. Like so many times I think to myself, like, yeah, this is such a, like this skill set is so applicable to many different things.
I think it applies to everything, because the only way you get good at something is you be consistent and you have good positive self-talk, or you're going to stop.
Yeah. Yeah, dude. Well, I don't know if you want to hit on any other things that have been interesting in your studies lately. I know we've been going for an hour. I don't want to keep you too long if you have studies to do, but yeah, bro, I'm definitely down to keep going for a little bit extra if you have anything on your mind.
Yeah, I think we definitely did a little bit on BFR, so blood flow restriction. But
Nice.
I don't think that's too interesting. But it was more how metabolites cause growth, because it goes back to the guy saying that high reps don't cause growth. And I think, again, it's like muscle damage. There's no direct proof. But if you want to chat metabolites a little bit, because I'm super biased to high reps. I just really like them. But I think for someone to write off the burn and the pump for not being growth promoting, I think it's a dangerous game to play. So if you want to chat metabolites a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, real quick, I want to show the people like an example of BFR. So
yeah,
like definitely probably one of, oh man, this guy's form is dog shit, but we get the point. Let me share this tab real quick. Yeah, not the best form here, but the BFR cuffs are really what help to drive metabolites here. So yeah, definitely the metabolite accumulation is next level. And I'm with you, man. Like, and it loops back in with the rep range argument. Like, metabolite accumulation is another great mechanism to drive hypertrophy. I don't know if people if it's much of a widespread thing. I've done BFR training. I'd imagine you have at this point. It's very, very painful, but it can be effective in a lot of different scenarios. So yeah, I'll let you do your thing. And now that people know that now that they know what BFR training, for those listening on audio, essentially there's cuffs that you can strap around areas. Like typically I want to say it's towards the insertion of a muscle group. And then you tighten them up to a reasonable tightness. Some cuffs even have like metrics that allow you to tighten them up to like an optimal amount. And it really just drives that metabolite accumulation from there.
Yeah, it wouldn't take long to research. Like I can't remember from our lectures, but there's certain pressure you want, and you, as you said, it's more like it's more proximal on the muscle, and then you don't want to get it so tight that you can actually fuck some shit up. So do a little bit. But if you buy something, I'm sure there's instructions, and obviously with 2025, you ask AI, you'll be fine. But it was also it's really interesting in terms of like athletes rehabbing and stuff like that, so they can actually like not lose too much adaptation. And it goes back to the load point, 5 to 10 reps. How are BFR studies inducing hypertrophy when the load is so incredibly low?
Yeah, well, we're talking low loads, people.
Like, yeah, forget 30 reps. You're talking like 45 reps, like 15% of your 1RM. So how is that inducing growth? Of course, we're not saying it's 1 and 1 equals 2 there, but there's something going on. It's likely less tension mediated and more down to just disrupting the muscle cell, making it swell. That swell, from my studies anyways, probably signals higher muscle protein synthesis and growth factor release, because ultimately we have homeostasis when we're chilling doing the podcast, and then we have training. And the training is what disrupts homeostasis and gets us our adaptation. So if you disrupt the cell so much, fill it with so much metabolites and fluid, that signals more muscle protein synthesis. I mean, that's one side to it. I wouldn't write that off at all. The other side to it is there's some decent literature that tension mediated pathways are accelerated in the presence of metabolites. So even if it's indirect growth, it's still growth if it helps tension growth. And then the other side to it is those metabolites play on endocrine signaling. So like lactate, for example. There's 2 things I learned about lactate. Something I learned yesterday, which is fucking mind blowing. We might talk about it a little bit. But lactate kind of indirectly or directly, I don't want to say anything, completely off the top of my head, but directs growth hormone release, simply because it signals that, look, it's low energy availability. Growth hormone breaks down fat for energy. Growth hormone directly signals IGF release, insulin-like growth factor. So you're getting these anabolic hormone increases by having a lot of lactate in the muscle. So, I mean, it's definitely not, as I said, 1 + 1 = 2, but it's pretty close to it in terms of muscle growth. So to write off high reps and to write off the burn as not a proxy for growth, I think is definitely ill-informed there.
Yeah. From everything I've heard, just to kind of add in my 2 cents there, like the pump or like the muscle swelling, like you said, it does correlate to muscle growth. So basically to kind of like break some of that process down, like the metabolites, they're essentially byproducts of your muscle cells and your muscles doing work in a workout. So like there's a variety of metabolites, like I know calcium, for example, potassium. Those are all metabolites that are building up and going through processes while you're training. So just would you say then that the presence and the elicitation, if that's a word, of those metabolites is, from what we understand right now, can contribute to hypertrophy?
I think you definitely can't say 1,000%, but I think you can say like 95. I think for people listening, like as you said there, as you do more and more reps, it's less ATP PCR and it's less aerobic. And it's just anaerobic. So we have these metabolic byproducts, hydrogen ions, calcium, potassium. They make the muscle swell. And as I said, they do signal some anabolic growth hormones as well. Can't hurt. But I think the amount of the metabolites in the cell, so the presence and the duration, makes a big difference. So that's why like myo rep match works really well. Giant sets, super sets. I think it's a really good way to stimulate growth, having less stress on your joints. I think when you're used to metabolite work, I think it's easier to push through. At the start, it's a bit of a shock to the system because it's kind of cardio-esque. So don't write them off if you try them tomorrow and you're like, fuck this. It does take a few weeks. You also get like rapid enzyme adaptations, metabolite buffering systems that just like upregulate really, really fast. So it gets easier to tolerate them. But question, are they conducive to growth? I can't remember your question in the end there. Yeah, I think that the presence and the amount is massive, and just disrupting the muscle sacroilimus of the muscle cell again goes back to the muscle damage. Not too much, but from the BFR studies, the reason guys are getting muscle growth is the load is so light. It's likely not just tension, even though as you get close to failure, even if the load is light, you're still going to recruit your faster muscle fibers. So they're going to the ones that are going to reduce the force. Force detected equals tension measured, more growth. But a lot of it's got to be down to the presence of metabolites and just that pump, just the muscle cell being engorged for a while is something the muscle cell doesn't want. It's not homeostatic. So again, that's why I can't remember the exact name of the paper, but I remember I was training downstairs in the gym in between sets. I was doing my reading and I was on BFR. It was like 2 weeks after our first podcast. And I was like, holy shit. And the conclusion was disrupting the muscle cell or swelling it increases muscle protein synthesis. And it was found across all the entire study, every individual that happened. So muscle swollen, increased muscle protein synthesis, probably a good thing. And I wouldn't be writing it off. And it goes back to tie a nice knot in that. It goes back to a bigger picture thing. You can't, over the course of a week or 6 months, just train in a 5 to 10 rep range. So we're not saying throw out your heavy sets. We're just saying for side delts, biceps, forearms, calves, even quads, that burn, leaning into that pain, keeping tension where it needs to be is probably a good thing. And I'd say in 5 to 10 years, if you follow Dr. Cody Hahn, he does a lot on lactate. I think it's going to be unequivocal that the burn or just metabolic byproducts, hydrogen, lactate, cause direct muscle growth. Again, we don't know for sure right now, but I think it's a good bet to even just sprinkle into your training. It's also, you know this, you'll get the best pumps of your life. If you want your quads coming out of your skin, do some leg extensions into some partial squats, and you'll have pumps like you've never had before.
Yeah. And I think just for like the listeners out there wanting to practically integrate that into their approach, it's like, hey, like, tension and putting tension on the muscle with heavy loads, it's a shoe-in for good things to happen. But, definitely keep in mind there's other mechanisms for hypertrophy as well that that metabolite accumulation through whether it be higher rep sets, BFR, like you said, supersetting a movement like leg extensions with some body weight partial squats, that accumulation of metabolites, it only kind of from the studies that we've seen, it only kind of makes sense that that's a player in this game as well. And it's best to just include both as like from not only just trying to get optimal results, but like, fatigue management perspective from, I think it's a way to impart a different type of novel stimulus. So all good things that just, if you're trying to optimize and get the most out of your time in the gym, it's great to include both.
It goes back to, again, we're saying again, the big picture, like even at worst, if they're neutral to muscle growth, I mean, you're ticking off your cardiovascular needs for long-term health. Having higher cardiovascular needs, like if your cardio is up, even if you're a powerlifter lifting to this, you're doing sets of 1, 2, or 3 for that ATP PCR to be resynthesized. It's aerobic. So if you do higher reps, you don't have to get on the bike or go for a run. Your higher reps, your cardio at the very worst. But I mean, again, case studies are awful. For myself, a lot of my training, I'd say half of my training is kind of the metabolite 10 to 20 range. I've seen pretty good results. I know that's weak, but again, it was something novel that when I was early to training, it was just heavy, like heavy set of pull-ups, heavy set of bent rows. And I think, if you're thinking big picture, it's worth including.
Oh yeah, man. I've kind of leaned more towards the 10 to 20 rep range, a little bit more metabolite accumulation in my own training as well. I guess, no real reason why I've done that. It just kind of felt natural and something that I've liked and felt like I got a good stimulus, felt like I'm seeing some progress. So I'm there with you, man. It's like something that if you haven't tried a lot of, definitely give it a shot. And like you said, give it time because, if you're doing it for the first session, it'll be different. It might not be fun. It's going to suck. It's going to hurt. But just keep integrating it in. And over time, I think it's like a great thing to integrate.
Yeah, I think sprinkle it in and just give yourself a little bit of leeway that your logbook might say 3 RER and you might stop at 5, but that's okay because it does fucking hurt, but it makes you tougher over, and it makes you able to push yourself through tension-based stuff. Not that they're metabolites tension, they're happening at the same time, but not that they're different. But it really helps you know if you're pushing yourself. Like if, like I do for a while, I did sissy squats, superset it with body weight length and partial squats. And like both the first set might be like 25 and 23, and like you're at rep 18, and oh my God, you think you're done and you just keep going and you keep going, you keep going. It's a nice feeling knowing, all right, all these principles I'm trying to coach about pushing yourself. Okay, at least I'm walking the walk a little bit here. So that's another byproduct of it. But yeah, just sprinkle in and you'll get enzymatic adaptations and you get some cardiovascular adaptations that will make it a lot easier very quickly.
But just remember, because you weren't stable, you were wrong and you're going to hell.
Exactly. Like my knees are just going to jump out of my skin and run away. Yeah. Honestly.
Interesting, man. Interesting. Yeah. Yeah. I think of all of the things with like the main drivers of hypertrophy, I feel like that's one, like you said, over the 5 years is going to be hopefully a lot more good research to examine the effects there. I think that's probably a next area of focus for a lot of studies, probably.
Well, it goes back to lactate. Like everyone thought that was the reason you were fatigued, when like lactate actually drives glycolysis. We need the stuff that's coming with it, like hydrogen ions. I mean, I don't know how long ago that was a thing. And then something I studied yesterday, man, that not to get too nitty gritty physiology wise, but I think there's a tiny bit of evidence that lactate can kind of like finish the immune system loop of going from like pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory. Lactate like speeds it up. Now you might think, if you're a nuanced listener, oh, speeding up recovery like ice baths is a bad thing, but it doesn't speed up recovery. It just finishes the loop a bit faster. So something that you can play around with is, if you're training like 6 days a week and you're at your recovery edge, or you're like at your MRV, you might finish your training with metabolite work to have more lactate and speed up your recovery. Now that's really, there isn't much literature on that at all, so don't take that as verbatim. But what I'm just trying to say is lactate is so misunderstood. And my brother's studying medicine, and like the things he's doing with lactate will blow your mind. So there's still, like, it's 2025, there's still so much stuff we don't know about the human body, especially the brain. I have another friend, he's doing a PhD in like pain. And I'd be sending him some stuff like, say, a nociceptor, which is like a pain receptor, has like specialized proteins. He's like, oh, there's no really such thing. And I was like, oh, well, my textbook says there was. So like what he's trying to say is, if you have someone talking about the brain with confidence, they're probably full of shit. And I was like, oh, yeah. Okay. So, I mean, our bodies are pretty cool. Sometimes I actually ask, like, how can we know this? Do you know what I mean? How can we that this happens? And the reality is, we don't know. This is what studies say, and we're taking an opinion on it. You know, even tension, man, like, this is what most of the studies say. It's probably true, but it's not like 1,000%.
Yeah, dude, I'm with you that lactate is misunderstood. Like, I think a lot of people attribute that like burn to lactic acid, but it's like, to my understanding, it's more so like the hydrogen ions that accumulate as metabolic byproducts from muscle contractions. And like that's why buffering with a supplement, like buffering that hydrogen ion with a supplement, like, I don't know, like beta alanine, I think buffers. That's why the benefit of beta alanine is a thing. If that's beneficial for hypertrophy training is a whole other discussion. But lactate, that's an interesting one. Interested to see. Yeah, man, like you said, like, it's just, we're still in uncharted territories and furthering our understanding of so many things. So we're working with the best we got and getting swole from there, pretty much, bro.
That's all you can do, man. Like, and if you're making progress, I mean, you know, check what's working and then just keep doing that. Like, I hope people don't get confused. Like, essentially, good technique, train hard, sleep well, make sure you have protein, and you're ticking off like 95%, as you mentioned at the start of the podcast. Like, the low hanging fruit is going to be 95%. This like metabolite versus tension, this is like when you're 5-10 years into training and you're just trying to make a little bit more gains. Like, it's like, if you want to, you know, get faster, go sprint. You know, you don't need to worry about, do I do hill sprints, do I do accelerations? Just run fast. You want to jump higher, go do some jumps, and that's 90%, you know. And that's what the best coaches say. Like, they don't overcomplicate it. When someone plateaus, that's when you implement the sexy stuff and you go, okay, maybe we'll try hill sprints because we actually want to slow you down. You're almost too fast, that you're higher velocity. We only want to hit once a week, so we're going to do hills Wednesday, Friday, so you don't tear another hamstring. That's really sexy high-end stuff, you know. It ties me into the last thing I wanted to mention. Like, college kind of taught us how to write your own program. If you want to run through that for a few minutes, because I think that's a nice takeaway.
Yeah, dude, definitely. I'm interested.
Even like, how would you set up writing a program? Like, do you have a methodology, or how would you do it?
Yeah, man, I think I kind of default into one of my own biases, which is like pre-exhausting. So like I typically do like do you want to go like a leg day, for example?
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. So I typically I think I structure the movements of like a leg day to potentiate the muscle group that I'm most trying to like my priority. So for me, like it's quads because I just have long femurs, not the best quad genetics, need to get my quads up. So what I do is, and I actually, you know, there's a train of thought where a lot of people are like, hey, if quads is your priority, you should train them first. I actually take a different approach because of my past injury history and just because I found some other ways that work well for this. But I'll actually really go with maybe a more unconventional exercise order. So what I would do is if quads are my main focus for that leg day session, my ankle mobility sucks. So I'll hit calves first. Obviously, I need to get my calves up too. So from a motivational perspective, like I'm not absolutely mentally drained and just ready to go home like I might be after a crazy hard session of hack squats or leg press. So I'll hit my calves first, get some range of motion through my ankle joints, which can help better knee flexion. Then after calves, I'll move on to like, let's say I'm doing like, I'm not going to do a hinge that day. I'll move on to like a leg curl variation. And this one is just one of my personal preferences. I've heard it from multiple sources, like multiple people, no real research to bring it up, but something about hitting a hamstring curl before a squat movement pattern, it just really helps my knee joints feel good for that movement pattern to come, kind of potentiates it. Yeah. And I feel like they're also not super fatiguing to the point where it's detracting from my capacity to work. It's going to detract maybe a little bit, but I'll hit hamstrings first and then I'll go into my quad work. Maybe if I'm pre-exhausting, I'll hit like a leg extension and then a leg press. And typically, you know, I'm doing like 2 major movements with, holy shit, dude.
You're getting arrested, man, because you're doing calves first.
After I hit my calves, hamstrings, I'll go into potentially a pre-exhaust movement, and then I'll go into like a heavy compound. So definitely is different than most people. I'm interested to hear your thoughts there.
I think that's super interesting. Like you would think someone who's savvy would be like, well, you know, specificity, quads are the priority, but for you to get the most out of your quads, yes, you're going to induce a little bit of fatigue, but as you said, it's not systemic. I mean, when you're doing calf raises, you're like thinking what you're going to have for dinner or what you're watching tonight on TV. I mean, you just do it, like it burns a little bit, you stop, you go again. So
yeah,
it makes sense as well. Like gastrocnemius biarticulate helps knee flexion, get that bad boy warmed up. Potentiation is another whole thing that we could talk about the next time. Like some really interesting shit there. Like I've changed my mind on it big time. And then like you're bending your knees with a hamstring curl. So of course your knees are going to feel better. Ton of blood in there, good mind muscle connection, moving some fascia. Like, yeah, like that makes tons of sense. So it goes down to like, that was your needs analysis. Again, writing a program, step 1, needs analysis, and then being really nitty and gritty there, because you might have said, okay, quads are the priorities. That's in my needs analysis. However, for me to get the most out of my quads, I'm actually going to do these 2 exercises first. So, I mean, that's super savvy programming and just experience. Like,
yeah. That being said, real quick, because I want to hear your thoughts, and I saw you write about this actually. So yeah, I'm glad you brought this up. The other day when I hit the workout with Shimmy, he was just like, no warm up, like let's fucking hack squat, like, and I was like, oh fuck, like I haven't done this in a minute, and I was a little like, do I try to do a little something else? And I'm like, no, let's just do it and see what happens. And it was fine. So like, these are the nuances here, people. But yeah, like, what are your thoughts? Like, how would you structure a session based off of like whatever needs analysis scenario you wanna bring there?
Yeah, I think the big thing with getting warmed up is obviously human body works better at higher temperatures. So the big thing is just getting warm. But the second thing is just arousal. So epinephrine, norepinephrine, cortisol. The fact that you were training with Shimmy, new gym, you were probably already on edge a little bit.
Super aroused.
Just because of his, no, he doesn't have long hair anymore, does he?
No,
But,
not anymore.
but you probably got away with it a little bit. You know what I mean? I would definitely
Yeah.
would recommend it, and I'm surprised he did that, but he probably just had a reason for it. But I think just from studying potentiation a little bit, and something happened really interesting happened like 2 weeks ago. I did like, because I'm fat loss dieting, my volume wasn't that high. I did like one set of weighted pull-ups, and then I did a body weight set next. And the weighted pull-ups was a work set, so you would think it's fatigue inducing. But my next set of body weight pull-ups were just insane. And I was thinking to myself, that first set was a work set, so it's stimulative, but also it was incredibly potentiating. So I'm thinking, instead of doing like 2 or 3 reps as potentiation set, I might do a little more, considering it's the start of the session. I'm not really going to get fatigued. So in terms of how I would structure it, it would just go down to, what's the priority? Now, if I have some mobility constraints like yourself with knees, I might work around that. But let's just say I'm fully healthy. Priority muscle group first. The last 6 months have been triceps, arms, and delts. So yeah, I know it sounds like a sin, but bicep curls before pull-ups. It can be that simple. But I think for most folks listening, you're probably better off doing a slightly higher neural demand movement first, like a deadlift or a squat, or something slightly a little more unstable. Sissy squats aren't unstable, by the way, as we know, but back squats are. So like that 5 to 10 rep range first, if you're a little bit newer to training and you just want to bring up everything, 5 to 10 reps first, high neural demand, shift into 10 to 20, and then finish with your metabolite work. I think metabolite work first, like a pre-exhaust, can work, but it can fuck you up so much that there's a negative consequence for the rest of the session. But it can be as simple as, what's your priority? That goes first, even if it's forearms or calves. And then it goes to, if you don't really have a priority, you're newer to training, it's just, what's going to tax me the most? I want to do that first in most instances, but it could be a case of like, say a stiff-legged deadlift, for example, you might do that second or third, because after that, you're done. So I tried to make it simple. That's complex. In most cases, do the high neural demand first. So a pull-up, a back squat, a bent row. But you know, from a little bit of experience of your own training, and maybe like you're savvy, I like take notes in my logbook, like, oh, this fucked me up more than it didn't, blah, blah, blah. If you have that written down somewhere, you might know, okay, I thought 5 to 10 first, but barbell stiff leg deads, after that, I'm cooked. So I'm going to leave that till last. And I know I can empty the tank because I'm done after it. So it can be as complicated or as simple as you want, but simple framework, priority first, or the heavier high neural demand first, and then work your way through the rep ranges and work your way to smaller muscles is a good framework.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, man. I think I really like the point that you brought about the stiff-legged deadlifts, because there are just certain movements that can really like cook you, and you're so fried that it derails the rest of your session. So I'm always of the mindset of like, hey, like hit your priorities and then move on to the other things, and still like try to train as hard as you can. But yeah, man, that's a great little caveat that you brought up. There are certain things like a stiff-legged deadlift. I don't think I have in many years ever done that first in the session for that exact reason. So just little things that as you work in the gym, like you start to find those, it's like, hey, like this is just, it's derailing the rest of my session. So yeah, it's like finding what does that to you and then structuring accordingly. So yeah, great. I like the back and forth, the different style there.
Yeah, I think it goes back to like, if you really care about this and you're in that intermediate phase, all this stuff should be tracked or written down somewhere. So it could be as simple as, this exercise works for me. It's written down of a written record. Stiff-legged deadlifts fuck me up. I have to do it second last or last. You should be tracking all this stuff and putting it into your lifting arsenal. So when you set up a new block of training, when you're most sensitive, you've got the most motivation, most drive, you're most anabolic, you're not fucking around for the first 2 weeks changing stiff-legged deadlifts to a good morning. You know this works. And when you get more into training, that shit really pisses you off and derails you. You want to, like, I'm taking 2 weeks off now. When I get back, I'm going to be like a war machine. I want to go. I don't want to be switching things. But I have so much information from years of experience. Some stuff I've written down, some stuff you just remember. But if it's written down, it's there. And then you can plan your training much better. And I think it's really important, even if you have a coach, to let your coach know that. because they're not mind readers. If you don't, like, again, with my clients, the ones who do the best, they communicate with me all the time. That's what I want. The more information you give me, the more I can help you. And if you're a lifter by yourself, the more information you record, you're consciously aware of, the better you can program yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, man. I like it. That was a good little parting takeaway for the people, man. I'm glad we talked about that.
100%, man. I have so much more to talk about, but we'll do a part 3.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We will. Yeah, I love getting into the weeds of, the mechanisms behind hypertrophy or whatever the goal at hand is. I love it, man. So, yeah, we'll definitely get you back on for a part 3 once. When is your like semester or whatever? Do you guys call it semesters in Ireland as well?
I just finished one, so we are starting again.
Gotcha.
Maybe after the next one, we're doing athlete coaching and monitoring. So that should be really easy. That should be really easy. It would be really hard. That should be really interesting. So whenever we can discuss, we didn't even like get into recovery and stuff like that, so we can discuss that as well.
Yeah, definitely. So that's nice. Hopefully it's like, I know you mentioned, I'm not sure if you mentioned this on air or off air, but like this last semester, this last few months of classes were like pretty statistics heavy, maybe not the most enjoyable stuff to learn about, but it's kind of back to enjoyable stuff.
Yeah, I think they structure it. They do like one sports, one science, one sport, one science to keep your interest. That's how it seems. For some reason, they scrapped the nutrition module, but I actually asked for it, so I'm not going to get tested on it. But yeah, some really interesting. Yeah, I have a few lectures left. I'm going to listen to one soon. It's on nutrition for the injured athlete, so that should be interesting. But yeah, it'll be cool. I wonder what we do different there. Yeah, but like the more you can just keep digging, so you got to know when to stop digging to the molecular level shit. So
yeah, for sure. Hey, maybe if you go the PhD route someday, you can dig as far down as you want.
I tell you what, the last assignment kicked my ass so much because it was so academic. If I can please God, touch wood, get this master's, I'll be happy.
Yeah, I don't blame you, man. That's just a next level of dedication and work there. So I definitely feel that, man. You're getting through. That's all that matters.
Please God, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Daniel, I appreciate you, man. That was a good one. A lot of practical gems, as well as like getting into the nuances of this stuff, which I love, bro. That's what the podcast is all about. Appreciate you, man.
Pleasure, man. Enjoyed it.
Yes, sir. Hey, I appreciate everybody for tuning in. I feel like if you made it this far, you're a real one, and we appreciate you for listening. So if you did make it this far, of course, if you're not already following Daniel, I have his handle kind of off center because it was a longer one, man. I was trying to center it. I was like, I think he'll be here. So let me move it. I fucked up the centering, but science_based physique training on Instagram. Definitely go follow him. Do you have any other, do you post on TikTok or mostly just get trolled by those fucking kids?
No, man. I haven't been on TikTok in 2 years and I'm staying off.
Yeah. Oh, that's fair. So mostly Instagram is where they find you then.
Instagram. Yeah. If you want to chat, I'm open to just chatting, or if you want coaching, let's do it.
Yes, sir. I love it, man. I love it. Put that good knowledge, that academia to work with Daniel. Hit him up. Follow him on Instagram. If you're not following me, if you found this on YouTube or Spotify or Apple Podcasts, there's my handle as well, dmart_training. Be on the lookout for more podcasts just like this. Maybe not just like this. This was Daniel's a special guest. He's a one of a kind type. So other good podcast though, for sure. Be on the lookout. Leave us a review. I feel like subscribe. Whatever the fuck they say for YouTube. Subscribe, like, comment, all that shit. And Daniel, any parting thoughts?
No, just train hard, good technique, big picture, 10 years to build that physique.
And if all else fails, run a cycle. Peace.